Guess who the potential witnesses are that Gabby's parents are going to call for trial? And guess who they're not calling? I have their initial witness list and exhibit list that they just filed with the court, and I'm going to walk you through it. So please do subscribe to this channel. Hit the subscription button, hit the like button, and hit the bell notification button. And please do leave a comment, because this video is simply my analysis, my opinion. I want to know what your analysis is, so please do leave a comment. Hi there, I'm Michele Hagan. I'm a legal analyst and a former prosecutor. You may recognize me because I provided a lot of legal analysis on the Elizabeth Holmes case, and I've done a lot of videos on the Petito versus Laundrie lawsuit. And by the way, you might want to look at the video I did called Examining the Petito versus Laundrie lawsuit, which walks you through all the allegations that Gabby's parents make against Brian's parents to support their case for emotional distress against Brian's parents for allegedly withholding information regarding their daughter Gabby Petito's whereabouts, the tragic, tragic murder of Gabby Petito. So let's take a look at who they're calling and who they're not calling on their witness list for the trial. And again, keep in mind that Brian's parents have filed a motion to dismiss, to throw out this emotional distress lawsuit that Gabby's parents have filed against Brian's parents. That will be heard. The motion to dismiss will be heard. The hearing is set on June 22nd. Now, assuming the case is not thrown out, and again, look at the prior videos I did on don't dismiss this case, does the Constitution apply? And that'll let you know what each side is alleging as to why the case should be thrown out or not thrown out. So, assuming the court, the judge, does not grant the Laundrie's request to dismiss this case, then it will proceed to trial. So these witness lists, this one that I'm going to go through with you regarding Gabby's parents, I'm going to do a subsequent video. The next video I'll do will be the witness list that the Laundries have filed. But assuming it goes to trial, this is an initial witness list, meaning they can amend it as they go through discovery. They could add witnesses, they could delete witnesses. So this is just their initial witness list. But I think it's interesting because guess who's not on this witness list and guess who is on it? So let me walk you through it. Please do subscribe, hit the like button, hit the bell notification, and leave a comment. I want to know what's your analysis. That's why I created this channel. I want to hear from you. And by the way, if you have a case or a topic that you want me to cover, please do leave that in the comments as well. All right, so let's go through the witness list that was just filed by Gabby's parents. Who are they calling and who are they not calling? So you see it was filed, I think that was Friday or Thursday last week. On May 19th, they filed this initial witness list. It says Joseph Petito and Nichole Schmidt, so those are Gabby's parents, the plaintiffs. They're the ones bringing this civil lawsuit against Chistopher Laundrie and Roberta Laundrie. That's Brian's parents. Those are the defendants. Those are the people being sued. They're being sued for emotional distress damages that allegedly Gabby's parents suffered because they claim that Brian's parents withheld information as to Gabby's whereabouts. They didn't cooperate with them. Therefore, that caused them a lot of emotional distress. That's what they're claiming. All right, and you can look at the video I did on, by the way, the wrongful death claim that Gabby's mother has filed against Brian Laundrie's estate. You might want to take a look at that too. That's separate, but this is the emotional distress case. All right, so it says plaintiff's initial disclosure of witnesses and exhibits for trial and notice of intent to use summaries. Who are they calling? Joseph Petito, that's Gabby's father. Nichole Schmidt, Gabby's mother. Tara Petito, that would be Gabby's stepmother. James Schmidt, Gabby's stepfather. And guess who? Chistopher and Roberta Laundrie. Why are Gabby's parents calling Chistopher and Roberta Laundrie? Because they allege that the Laundries withheld information regarding their daughter. They claim in this lawsuit, they allege that the Laundries were told by Brian that he murdered Gabby. They were also allege that the Laundries had information regarding Gabby's whereabouts, the tragic death and murder of Gabby Petito. They want the Laundries to get on the stand and answer questions. They're calling them as witnesses. And you may say, well, how can they be calling them as a witness? Well, in civil cases, you can call the defendants in your case. You can call them and you can ask them questions. Whether or not they answer those questions is a different story. And why is that? Because the Fifth Amendment in the Constitution guarantees the right to remain silent, which is what they have claimed as the reason for not talking, right? If you look at that video I did on examining the lawsuit and the other videos I did on does the Constitution apply, because the Laundries are claiming that they have the right to remain silent. They didn't have to talk to the Petito Schmidts. They didn't have to talk to Gabby's parents when they were reaching out, begging for them to give them information that they may or may not have regarding Gabby Petito, right? So they're claiming they have the constitutional right to remain silent, the right to have counsel, etc., right? But when it comes to trial, do they have to testify? Well, they have the right to remain silent if they think they risk criminal prosecution. In other words, anything that they say could be used against them in a potential criminal case. Would that apply? What do you think? Do you think they have the right to remain silent and not testify, even if Gabby's parents call them as potential witnesses at trial? And guess what? This Fifth Amendment right, according to the U.S. Constitution and case law and the Florida Constitution as well, they have the right to remain silent in depositions, right? If it's relevant, right? They could also invoke their Fifth Amendment right to remain silent if they think they are facing any criminal prosecution. They don't have to have a criminal prosecution, doesn't have to be pending. A criminal investigation doesn't have to be pending because it's a broad interpretation. Courts usually, and again, this is simply my opinion, I could be wrong, usually they, in abundance of caution, they will allow the defendant or the witness to invoke the right to remain silent if there's any possibility of any criminal prosecution. Do you think the Laundries could be prosecuted? Do you think they're going to continue to invoke their right to remain silent, even if they're called by the Petitos in this lawsuit? And what happens if? What happens if they are granted the right to remain silent? Well, guess what? In Florida, unlike in California, in Florida, if they invoke the right to remain silent, that could be inferred. In other words, it could be used against them. In California, if somebody invokes the right to remain silent, the opposing party, in this case, it would be Gabby's parents. Gabby's parents' lawyers cannot, in California, they would not be able to use that against this witness. But in Florida, you can argue and say that negatively impacts their testimony. In other words, they can say potentially it discredits this witness, or you don't need to listen to this witness's testimony if they're not going to answer these questions. That's potentially what Gabby's parents' attorney could argue. So invoking the Fifth Amendment right to remain silent in Florida can be used against you, but it can't be used against you in California. It's pretty interesting. So we'll see if they invoke it, and again, we'll see if this case even proceeds to trial. So who else are they going to call? Representatives from the FBI. Well, why are they calling FBI as witnesses? Well, I assume that's going to get to the fact of, the tragic death of Gabby Petito, the cause of the death. Also, potentially all the cell phone communications, whether they're text messages, potentially emails, potentially voice recordings, all of that maybe the FBI captured, or the North Point Police Department could also be testifying to that. We don't know yet. But again, this is just an initial witness list. These are witnesses that they could be calling at trial. Okay, then we have, let's see who else. We have all persons identified on the witness list of the parties. That means any witnesses that the Laundries identify as potential witnesses, Gabby's parents could also call in their case. And again, the plaintiff puts on their case first, they call all their witnesses, then the defense puts on their case and they call their witnesses. So they could also call custodians of records. So that would be anyone who captured any of the cell phone, the text messages, to authenticate that they captured, they had this evidence. Any and all persons identified during the course of discovery. So if during deposition there's another person who overheard conversations, that person can be called as a witness. Under number 11, any and all persons whose depositions have been taken, any and all that can authenticate, interpret, or identify or introduce any exhibits. Those could be the text messages, the voicemail recordings, the emails, anybody who can authenticate that. And under number 13, any witnesses for purposes of impeachment. So in other words, Gabby's parents could call a witness to impeach any testimony by any witness that the Laundries put on a trial. They could also call rebuttal witnesses. In other words, witnesses to rebut anything that the witnesses that the Laundries called have said in their case. And they also reserve the right to supplement or amend the witness list. Again, this is just an initial witness list. They also have the right to add parties to the lawsuit as witnesses, and they reserve the right to call witnesses named by the defendants. Again, anybody on the witness list, and I'll get to that video on the initial witness list that the Laundries have filed of the witnesses that they may claim at trial. So this is saying that Gabby's parents are saying, yeah, we also have the right to call your witnesses as well. Well, what about the exhibits, trial exhibits? They reserve the right to add exhibits. They reserve the right to introduce any exhibit listed by the defendant. So there again, any exhibit that the defendants indicate, Gabby's parents can also use in their trial. And then they get to notice of intent to use summaries. Well, what's a summary? So I looked that up, and a summary is when you have voluminous amounts of information. So it says here, when it is not convenient to examine in court the contents of voluminous writings, recordings, or photographs, a party may present them in the form of a chart, a summary, or calculation by calling a qualified witness. This is in the evidence code in the Florida statute. The proof of which shall be filed with the court and shall make the summary and the originals or duplicates of the data from which the summary is compiled available for examination by other parties at a reasonable time and place, and a judge may order that they be produced in court. So what's the voluminous materials that they potentially could be using that they want to provide a summary of? Well, maybe it's all the text messages between Brian and Nichole Schmidt. Maybe it's between Brian and his parents. Maybe it's between Brian's parents and Gabby's parents, or not, right? Maybe it's email messages between all the parties. We don't know yet, but they're just letting Gabby's parents are letting the court know that they may be using summaries. They may summarize or use a chart, or maybe they're going to be using maps. We don't know yet. Okay, so anything else on this? No, this was filed by Gabby's parents' counsel, Patrick Riley. And it was also served on Matthew Luca, who represents the Laundries. Okay, so who's not on this witness list? I'll give you my analysis. Number one, Cassie. Cassie Laundrie is not named as a witness by Gabby's parents. Cassie Laundrie is Brian's sister. Who else is not on this witness list? There's no doctor, there's no therapist, there's no expert witness indicated so far. And again, they don't have to, they have the right to amend, so they could add them later. But let's think about this. This is a case regarding emotional distress. Somebody needs to come in and testify, a witness, as to the amount of emotional distress that Gabby's parents allege that they suffered by Brian's parents' actions or inactions, by withholding information allegedly regarding the whereabouts of Gabby Petito. Did they suffer depression, anxiety, trauma, all of that? And who would be a witness that could testify to that? Well, it would be a doctor, a therapist, a psychiatrist, right? Anybody they went to see regarding this, regarding the emotional distress that they suffered. That witness would be considered an expert witness, giving their opinion as to the impact, the impact on them, the amount of distress that they would suffer or could have suffered, right? So there's no expert witnesses, no doctors, no therapists at this point on identified as a potential witness. And again, they could add that later. So who else? Who else do you think should be on this witness list? And do you think the Laundries are going to testify, or do you think they're going to invoke the Fifth Amendment right to remain silent as they have done throughout? I want to know, what's your opinion? What's your analysis? So please do leave a comment, leave a question. Please hit the like button, hit the bell notification so you get my next video. The next video I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through the witnesses that the Laundries have identified that they may call at trial. So please do subscribe, hit that subscribe button. And if you want to contribute to supporting me making these videos, they're a lot of work, I'll put a PayPal link in the description box below the video. So thank you very much for watching, and thank you for supporting my channel.